A year ago, I remember sitting at my kitchen table late at night, scrolling through my bank account on my phone. I had just gotten paid a few days before, but somehow my balance was already sliding towards zero. Again, it wasn't like I was out buying luxury cars or taking expensive vacations. It was just the usual bills, some takeout here and there, a few online purchases I didn't even remember making, and boom, the money was gone before the month even ended. That night felt different though. I was tired of feeling like I was running in circles, working hard but never moving forward. I had this moment where I thought, what if I could save a big chunk of money? Like really prove to myself that I can do it. And then I set a goal that felt way bigger than anything I had tried before, save $10,000 in 1 year. Now, if you're like me back then, your first thought might be, 10,000 in 1 year, that's impossible. And honestly, at first I felt the same way. I didn't have a high-paying job. I wasn't some financial expert. But here's the thing. I knew the only way to get different results was to do something different. So that's where it all started. I told myself I wouldn't wait for a raise. I wouldn't wait for some magic money to appear. I would use what I had and change how I handled it. The plan wasn't fancy. I just knew I had to make a few big changes and stick to them no matter what. But before I could save anything, I had to understand what was happening with my money. So I pulled up 3 months of bank statements and went line by line. Every coffee run, every streaming subscription, every random late night online order, it was all right there in black and white. And it hit me. I wasn't broke because I didn't make enough money. I was broke because I didn't manage the money I already had. That realization was my wake-up call. It wasn't fun seeing how much I had wasted, but it was the push I needed. Because now I had a starting point. I knew what needed to change, and the goal was clear: $10,000 in 12 months. This was the beginning of the journey. In this part, I'll share the exact steps I took to cut down expenses and set up a system that made saving automatic, even when it felt hard at first. Once I set the big goal of saving $10,000 in a year, the first question was simple. Where was that money going to come from? I wasn't getting a raise. I wasn't winning the lottery. So the answer had to come from two things: spending less and saving smarter. So I started with spending less. And let me be honest, it wasn't about turning my life upside down or never having fun again. I didn't want to feel like I was punishing myself. Instead, I looked for all the places where money was just slipping away without actually making my life better. The first big area was eating out. Before this challenge, I was grabbing takeout or going out with friends at least 3 or 4 times a week. It didn't seem like much at the time, $20 here, $15 there, but when I added it up for a month, it was over $300. That's nearly $4,000 a year just on food I barely remembered eating. So I made a rule: I would cook most of my meals at home. I started packing lunches for work, making simple dinners, and only eating out once or twice a month as a treat. It was shocking how fast the savings added up. Next were the subscriptions. I had Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, some random magazine app, and even a gym membership I hadn't used in months. Each one was only $10 or $15, so I never thought about it. But together, they were costing me over $100 every month. That's more than $1,000 a year. I kept only the ones I actually used regularly and canceled the rest. Another thing I did was cut back on impulse spending. You know, those late night Amazon orders, the little treat yourself moments that add up over time. I created a rule for myself. If I saw something I wanted that wasn't essential, I had to wait 48 hours before buying it. Most of the time, I realized I didn't even want it anymore after a day or two. That simple rule alone saved me hundreds of dollars in the first few months. But here's the thing: cutting expenses was only half the battle. I also had to make sure the money I was saving didn't just sit there in my checking account waiting to be spent. That's where automation came in. And honestly, it was the smartest thing I did in this whole process. I set up an automatic transfer from my main checking account to a separate savings account every time I got paid. So the moment my paycheck hit, a chunk of it moved straight to savings before I even saw it. Out of sight, out of mind. It felt like I was paying myself first instead of last. At first, I started small, maybe $100 each paycheck, just to get into the habit. Then as I cut more expenses, I increased the amount. This automation was a game changer because it took willpower out of the equation. I didn't have to remember to save. I didn't have to fight the temptation to spend. The money just moved quietly and consistently until my savings account started to grow. By the end of the first 3 months, I had already saved over $2,000. And here's the crazy part: I didn't feel like my life got worse. I still had fun. I still went out sometimes. But I was being intentional with my money instead of letting it control me. The truth is, most people think saving money means living like a monk and cutting out everything they enjoy. But what I learned is that it's about being smart, not extreme. You don't have to give up everything. You just have to stop paying for things that don't really matter. And with that, I was on my way. Cutting expenses gave me the first big push. But I knew if I wanted to hit $10,000 in 1 year, I had to go beyond just saving what I already had. That's when I started looking for ways to bring in extra money. And that's what I'll cover in the next part. By the time I had cut my expenses and set up automatic savings, I was already making real progress. But I quickly realized something important. There's only so much you can save when your income stays the same. Cutting back helped a lot, but if I wanted to hit $10,000 in 12 months, I needed to find ways to bring in extra money too. That's when I started looking into side hustles. Now, I'm not going to lie. At first, it felt overwhelming. There are so many people online promising you can make thousands of dollars a month doing random side gigs. I didn't want a get-rich-quick scheme or some complicated business I couldn't manage. I just wanted something simple that would put a little more cash in my pocket each month. So I started small. On weekends, I signed up for a delivery app like DoorDash. It wasn't glamorous, but it was flexible. I could work a few hours here and there and easily make an extra $200 or $300 a month. Every single dollar from that side hustle went straight into my savings account. I treated it like it didn't even exist for anything else. Next, I looked around my apartment and realized I had a ton of stuff I didn't even use anymore. Old electronics, clothes, furniture I never touched. I listed them on Facebook Marketplace and eBay. Within a couple of weeks, I had cleared out space in my home and made almost $500 from things that were just collecting dust. Then came freelance work. I had a little skill in writing, so I signed up on a site where people pay for small projects. The first few gigs didn't pay much, maybe 20 or 30 bucks, but it added up. By the end of 3 months, between delivery driving, selling old stuff, and freelancing, I had earned almost $2,000 extra dollars that went directly into savings. But here's what I learned. Making extra money is only half the equation. The real challenge is staying consistent and motivated. Because when you're saving for months on end, it's easy to feel like you're not getting anywhere fast enough. That's why I started tracking my progress like crazy. Every month, I would check my savings account, write down how much I had saved so far, and compare it to my yearly goal. At first, the numbers looked small. 300 here, 600 there. But slowly I started seeing it add up 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. Watching that number grow was addictive in the best way possible. I even made little milestones for myself. At $2,500 saved, I treated myself to a nice dinner. At $5,000, I bought a small gift I'd been wanting for months. It wasn't about spending a lot. It was about celebrating progress, so I didn't burn out halfway through the journey. Another thing that kept me going was reminding myself why I was doing this. Some days it was tempting to just stop and spend the money. But I kept a note on my phone with all the reasons I wanted to save. Freedom from paycheck to paycheck stress, building an emergency fund, and proving to myself that I could actually do it. Every time I felt like quitting, I read that list. By month 9, I was blown away. Between cutting expenses, automating savings, picking up side hustles, and tracking my progress, I was already over $8,000 saved. Something that felt impossible at the start was now just within reach. But there was still a few months to go. The final stretch was where everything I had learned came together, and that's what I'll share in the last part, including the punchline that sums up the entire journey. By the time I hit month 10, I was sitting at around $8,000 saved. The finish line was in sight, but I still had a couple of thousand to go, and honestly, this was the hardest part of the entire journey. You see, in the beginning, everything felt exciting. Cutting expenses felt like a fresh start. Earning extra money felt empowering. Watching the numbers grow each month gave me a rush. But by month 10, the excitement had worn off a little. It wasn't new anymore, it was just routine. And that's where most people quit, right before the big breakthrough. I knew if I let myself slip now, all that work would be wasted. So I tightened up even more for the final stretch. I stopped any unnecessary spending completely for 2 months. No eating out, no impulse purchases. If it wasn't essential, it didn't happen. I also doubled down on side hustles. I picked up extra delivery shifts on weekends, took on more freelance writing gigs in the evenings, and even babysat for a neighbor once or twice. Every extra dollar went straight into savings. I treated it like a game. How fast could I reach 10,000 if I pushed myself just a little harder? Tracking my progress became a daily thing at this point. Every time I added money to my savings, I wrote it down. Seeing the number inch closer and closer to that goal gave me the push to keep going, even when I was tired. And then one evening near the end of the year, I transferred a small freelance payment into my savings account. I opened the app, checked the balance, and there it was, $10,043.27. I can't even explain the feeling. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the fact that I had set a huge goal, stuck with it for 12 months, and actually did it. I had proved to myself that I wasn't bad with money. I just needed a plan, consistency, and a reason to keep going. And here's the biggest lesson. Saving $10,000 didn't just give me money, it gave me confidence. It showed me that I could take control of my finances instead of letting them control me. It gave me options. I could use that money for an emergency fund, invest it, or start building toward bigger goals. So if you're sitting there thinking saving that much is impossible, let me leave you with this. Big financial goals aren't won in a day. They're won in the small, consistent choices you make every single day. If I can save $10,000 in 1 year with a normal income, so can you. Start where you are, stay consistent, and one day you'll look back at the number in your account and realize you've changed your whole story, $1 at a time.